Alright, so I had some issues with my mic which I believe are now resolved. I will not be checking it because even if it's not resolved, I'm not missing the session. I can miss the live. I don't give a fuck about it. Like, to be very honest. And okay. So currently my first draw stands on 26,127. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at prices to go higher but to break lower, at least till here. After that, we'll know as price behaves what it really wants to do. And do you see how the gap has been closed and then we've broken lower? Right, that's another thing. And that is 9:30 open. Let's see how we behave. Again, my current draw is still lower. I'm looking for lower prices till this gap at least. I'm watching ES on the other chart. Overall, my expectation is to see a bearish day today because, well, that's what it looks like on the daily to me. Funnily enough, if you look at ES right now, we marked this gap yesterday for the draw and we were saying like that's why we did not hold that sell in NQ, right? Because ES did not hit the gap. It has hit it today at 8:15 and then dropped lower. Now that's very interesting to watch. Will it continue with the old narrative hitting back into this? Which I don't think so. I think this low is what is more important to me. Again, not just 1 second. So we are looking for that low again, that gap. Apart from that, I have no other understanding as of what the market should be doing. If you look at this candle here, right, this was 16.15 right here, right? So the market closed here. That's the RTH gap. I mean, that's a wide open gap, right? How many handles? That's 200. This is at 998. So that's a 300 handle gap. Ooh, okay, no, 200 handle gap. Sorry, my bad. So that's a 200 handle gap right in the RTH. We are in this opening range gap originally, and in my opinion we should be rejecting lower for a, like that low, this low. That's the whole approach right now, but again, I'm not hell-bent on it. I'm just waiting for what the market shows. My first draw remains there, which is not in the air, but that low right there. Okay, let's finally go to a 1 minute chart. We have not seen the chart in a while now. Right. Now see, what I was telling you the other day, why I did not hold the short. See, eventually it did give the target that I was talking about, right? This low right here without taking the stop out. But look at what it has done. It's spending so much time to give that one target. For what? For that 0.5% that we were discussing, right? So that like just for that extra 0.5%, we would have to go, we did go through, like I did not go through, but if we would have held that trade till there, we would have gone through 1024, right? 1024 was the position close till, well, that is right there. Okay, this candle right there, that's 1517, 1516. From 1024 to 1516, that's almost 5 hours for an extra 0.5%. I don't think I need to say something about it. It should be pretty much obvious what I mean by that. Excuse me. Again, so if I am to speculate, I'm still speculating because the market has not taken the low. If I am to speculate, if both ES and NQ take those lows, I would initially be looking for a higher run back into maybe these stops. You see those equal stops right there, this one and even this one maybe. So it could do that, but I'm not looking forward to it yet. I want to see how it behaves at this low and how ES behaves when it takes out the low, and if it takes out the low or not also, like that is also very important, right? I'm going to mark the lows nonetheless. Yep. All right. So far it's not such an interesting market. It 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 is slightly dull right now, but I think it would garner some momentum once the low is taken out. Not this low, right? Not 26,144. We are looking for what low? 26,127, right? That's what we are looking for. Just gonna keep it like this so we can see those lows clearly. Okay. And as for ES, I'm going to set an alert the moment it hits it. I realized that it took a lot of time for me to understand what a system is, what a setup is, what a model is, what a draw is, and what's bias, what's an edge. Like, it was a very long journey because I believe what I think, I'm not so confident on that yet, but I think it's about experience. As you spend more times with the market, you realize what each of the thing means, right? Like, just like you do a degree, a 4-year, 3-year, 5-year degree, right? So you might not understand some terms in the first year, but you would eventually start using them in the last year, right? So it's pretty much like that. But I do realize it took a lot of time to understand those terms, and I also know if I would have really understood those terms way earlier, it would have been a much easier job to build the whole system, to stick to it, to backtest it, right? क्वेश्चन ये दिमाग में चलता क्या रहता है? I mean, what the fuck goes in the mind? Also, जब मैं ये बोल रहा हूँ, I'm not telling you to engage the mind. I would highly recommend not to engage the mind, because I've been that path and it's a rabbit hole. You'll just keep going down. And last I realized, okay, it was for nothing. Almost. I will not say for nothing, but kind of for nothing. Like, I spent years. I think you must be knowing this YouTuber, Umar Umar Riaz, right? Yeah. So Umar Riaz. Okay. And I saw his videos earlier, like in the beginning of my Umar Riaz. Okay, sorry, Umar Ashraf, I think. I'm so sorry. I'm wrong about the name. Umar Ashraf, I guess. Right. So it's been a long time. Like I used to watch his videos very, very early in my trading, like I guess in the first or the second year maybe. So yeah, he used to talk about edge and everything. Earlier on also, he would talk about setups and I would see setups and I was like, what is he talking about? What is this? I never made sense. Like it never made sense. When I finally switched to ICT in the third year, that's when I understood what a setup is. That was the first thing. Okay. Okay, this is a setup. But see, by setup, it's very easy to say. A setup is something that you use for entry, right? It's that simple. But it's not that simple when you're actually looking for a setup, when you want to form one, right? Because you have to create it on your own. Create it in your own in the sense which resonates with you, right? So to understand what a setup means was in the third year. Then, then, then I moved on to what is a system. I did not understand what a system is. ICT was like, you have to build so much faith in your system that no situation or person can remove your faith from it. And I was like, what the fuck is a system? I mean, what is he talking about? Took me another year at least in the minimum. Like I had setups, I understood setups like 2022 models, right? Those are setups only. Like the 2022 model and other models that are there, right? So I understood that, but it took me another 1 or 1.5 years to realize what a system is. And that too not completely. I just had a gist of it, I would say. Okay, this is what a system could be. And then I got into tape reading. So how do you read the market? Now that's another different thing altogether. And then eventually it came to, like, when I find up that whole system in a sense, that which was pretty much this year only. Nothing like, it's not like I built it in the fourth year or something. Like this is the fourth year, right? This is the fifth year for me. So okay, ES has the low and so does NQ. I like what? I like the way the market has moved lower very slowly and it has not hit that gap. Now, why is that gap important? Because it did not allow anyone to enter there. It just kept moving lower. No other gaps were used, right? There are no other gaps. And if you see this small gap, which I'm not interested in, but yeah, even this was not used, right? So when I see that, I hold the opinion that the market would want to push higher and take some stops out and then come back lower, right? So that's the approach right now. But what will it depend upon? It will depend upon ES showing me that it is also interested in going higher. Right now my first draw is complete and now I'm waiting for the narrative to show me if we are going for these stops where here, here, and a very small stop, but I will not consider it. Like this is also a stop, but not something I would be favoring at the moment. See, my bias anyway, I forgot to mention even bias, right? That was also something, it took me a lot of time to figure what a bias actually means. See, understand bias. What is bias? Bias is direction, right? It's that simple, but it's not that simple. I'm telling you, it's not that simple. Because it gets developed with time. With time, you understand what a bias is. Like when you first saw the trading view system, let's say you open the chart for the first time, you've never opened trading view before and you open it the first time, it you understand, okay, what does this button do, what does that do, like, I mean, I know this is buy sell very clear, but okay, how many contracts, okay, is that also needed, okay, how much risk got opened, like so many things are there, right? So you understand that whole platform. In that very sense, you understand the whole of trading. Okay, I like where ES is right now. Actually, this is very interesting. See that right there. I'm going to mark that one out. Okay. Now, this is where I would expect which I'm not bullish. Again, I'm not bullish on this market. Not at all. I am looking at, you see, it consolidated, it took those stops out. That's a fucking breakdown, right? If that's a fucking breakdown, why would you go buying in there, right? So any rally up, in my opinion, should be a push lower. But that doesn't mean I can't trade that or I should not trade that. It simply means that I have to be very aware of what I'm looking for, because my bias is bearish, but my draw, like even my draw is also bearish. Like I'm looking for these lows and this volume imbalance right there. So that's what I'm looking for. But I need to see something very clear that tells me, okay, this is where we are going short. If the market's direction changes, my direction changes. It's just like that. Because if it gives me a clear-cut buying scenario, because everything is complete here, the process is wholly solely complete, and but the only thing against right now is the bias, okay, and in fact the draw also. I don't think it should make it till there, very honestly, looking at the way the candles have behaved and the way we have taken out the low and the way I hold a bearish bias today. So I don't expect it to be taken, but let's see how the market behaves. Now see, that was beautiful what just happened. I know I did not see it, but we can see it now. See that gap? Breakdown, gap opened, gap hit, and there was a speed right there. But that's not a sell. I'm not telling that was a sell. I'm just simply saying that was something I liked watching. Apart from that, well, yes, I don't think I have anything particular here. I'm still looking for market to show me something that shows that it's very willing to go higher or very willing to go lower, whatever may be the case. So like I was saying, bias took me a lot of time to figure out. Bias is not, see, draw and bias are two different things, okay? Like when I said this was my draw, okay, this was the draw. That does not necessarily mean that my bias is also bearish, even though it was today, I know. But even though the draw is here, that does not mean my bias is bearish, okay? But if that aligns, now let's say my bias is bullish right now, I'm looking for those stops. So when I say the bias is bullish, that's a sense of direction that you see when you see the daily chart, right? If you see the daily chart, what do I see here? Okay, when I see this movement, this slowdown and this breakdown and then rejection, and even though and that this rejection came in the last hour, last to last hour, like last as in after 16:30, right, after 4:30 p.m. New York time. So when I see that all of that aligned, I expect this day to be extremely bearish, going for that low. Okay, that's on the daily. That's just a bias. That does not have any framework, right? I'm just simply seeing the candle. I'm expecting what the next candle would most likely do. So next candle is most likely, in my opinion, bearish. So that's a bearish bias. That's not a draw. Okay, get the point? I hope you do get the point. And if you see this breakdown right there, I am not looking to buy that, like nowhere. Now I see it. I will not be touching it as a buy yet. And that right there is a 15. See, that gap was right in between, right? And see, that's why I said I don't want that high taken. I'm not expecting that high to be taken. If we are bearish, this gap would push prices lower, which I think we are. But once this 15-minute candle closes and we have a gap, that would tell us much more in detail as to what we are looking for. So another 11 minutes before we get more clarity into it, at least another 11 minutes. But again, my bias remains what? Bearish. I'm not looking for a higher run still. And we look into RTH, we have covered like not 50, but close to 50. I guess somewhere around 40% maybe. That was the open, right? Okay, no, we have covered 50 right there. So we have covered 50% of the gap. So, well, you can expect a retracement, a bullish retracement at this point, or consolidation. Because why? Because we are at the why a consolidation? Okay, okay, okay. Dude. Relax, relax. All right, that's okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right there. That's NQZ 2025. All right. So in a sense, I'm having a breakdown of the network in a sense, even though ES is moving on the other chart. Well, focus here. Let that one be for a moment. Okay. Yeah, all right. So yeah, okay, it removed all the lines as well. All right. No issues again. So I'm not looking at these to be taken. Let's just stick with this one. I'm not expecting this to be taken. And as for the 15-minute, there was this gap that I marked that we are still looking for, which is this one right there. Again, I'm not looking to buy this into that. I'm looking to this to move into it and sell that. That's what my approach is right now. That's the part of my narrative. Because if you look at the higher time frame, what has happened? We hit that gap, and in ES also we hit the gap I told you, right? The green gap that I marked yesterday, this gap right here. So this was also hit, and see the body respecting it, everything on point, and then we have a breakdown. So same goes here. We have buy side taken in this run, right? This was buy side right there. Buy side was taken. London highs, Asian highs, all were taken out again, and then we broke down with speed. Now what does that show me? That's the 2022 model forming. It's not yet formed. And looking at my bearish bias, where would my draw be now? This low, this low. That's what I'm expecting. Okay, right, so that is expecting, and that should remain safe. I expect that not to be taken. Okay, if you look at 5 minutes, there's a gap already right there, correct? So that should also help. Now, does it mean that the moment market comes here, I'm going to sell? No, that's not my approach. I mean, one could, even I could, I guess, in a sense, that trade the 5 minute or 15-minute chart, but I'm not that trader. I scalp, right? I mostly not. I stick to scalping and to intraday, intra-session trades, not even intraday, rarely intraday, it's mostly intra-session. So that is my approach. So what would I be looking for? I would not be looking for a 15-minute trade. I would be looking for a 1-minute opportunity pushing for the lower lows, right? Like this one, which has just been created in case this remains intact. Moving higher, we would take this top right there, and then we should present something right here, something most likely a 2022 model, and then we should be looking for lower prices. So that is the approach here. Let's see how that functions. Now, whenever I would see somebody's tweets, and by somebody I mean actually ICT, I don't really see anybody else's tweet in general. I mean, I do see something, obviously it's a Twitter page, right? It's a feed, so it will show something else as well, but mostly it was ICT's tweets that I would refer to all the time. And I did see him tweeting yesterday that it should be time that you book profits in NQ. That's what he said. Okay, that it might be time that you book some profits in NQ. Now, it's not about what he's saying more so. It's more about what do I feel about that. I already had a bearish bias, okay, since yesterday also. I told yesterday also that I'm holding a bearish bias. I'm looking for what? For this volume imbalance. Where is it? This one right here on NQ. I'm looking for those gaps to fill up. So when he said that, now this is where I used to get fucked up, and I might get fucked up today also in that scenario. But I'm not, I'm just being aware of it that it might happen. So best to keep it on the sideline and follow what you are seeing, okay? Like what I am seeing. So I would read his tweets or see his videos, like present videos, as in, let's say he uploads a video today and I watched it and now I'm coming in the session. So he would tell that this is the direction I'm looking for. This is what I'm like. It's bearish, it's bullish, something, something, something. And then I would come here in the session and I would trade that unknowingly. I thought it was my bias. I thought it was my draw, but it was not. And I would trade that and I would fail and then it would complete the draw, right? As ICT would have said. So I struggled there for a long time. So that's when, like, that was almost 8 months back, because I stopped seeing after that because I realized this is not working out. I need to stick what I see in the markets. I need to stick with what I feel is going to happen, what I see in the market in the sense of structure, in the sense of candles movements. So that's what I started seeing. So now I already hold a bearish bias and ICT says that it might be time to book NQ profits. So now another thing that happened here before also was me fighting that now, because see, I see ICT say that the bias is bearish, okay, and I actually have a bearish bias, right? But when I see ICT say it's bearish, now I'm like, okay, I think my bearish bias is because ICT has said the bias is bearish. See how there are two sides of the same coin. One is you believing it and not able to do it. Second is you fighting it. That's why in the beginning ICT also suggested that, but I never listened. Of course, I listened some of his things, but not everything. So yeah, that was bad. I should have listened earlier also. So earlier in the development, you want to see what you want to see. You don't want anybody else to tell you what you have to see, especially when you have learned something, okay? When you have an idea of what's going on in the market, you have your, in a sense, favorite PDA or a favorite model, whatever it may be, if you don't trade ICT. And that's what you want to see, and that's how you want to evolve that. But if somebody else's analysis or somebody else's approach to the market comes into view, that would make you struggle. And that would be an issue. I think it should not make you struggle for a long time if you are aware of it. But yeah, it will definitely make you struggle. Anyway, I was talking about, I think, bias, if I'm not wrong, which I already told you, right, what a bias really is. कि अगली जैसे जब मैं when I'm tape reading, right, like I say, okay, there's the candle, let's see how it closes. If it closes above that, I would expect the next candle to be bullish, right? So that's the approach. That's tape reading. That same thing is projected on the daily chart now. If that daily chart closes in this manner, the next candle most likely would be bullish or bearish, whatever it may be. And in my case today, I expect it to be a bearish candle. So when I say that, what is that? That's just bias. That's not framework to trade. That's not an idea that you can execute upon. That is simply a bias. It's just a sense of direction. It's not absolute. Okay, that's what it is. And again, yeah, this candle's rejection reminds me of that. See, when I say that I hold a bearish bias, and that's not just me trying to protect myself, okay, I've said something wrong, like if I'm wrong, I should be protected. Not in that sense. It simply means when you say the next candle is going to be bullish, you are now if you go into lower time frame, let's say Now this is a 1 minute chart. I don't want to go into 15 second or something to show you that, but well, if I'm saying the next candle is to be bullish, I would say, okay, in 15 seconds it should reach there, right? Somewhere in that vicinity. That's what the draw is in this very small range and very small scenario. In that very manner, when the daily candle is told to be expanding lower, now you're looking at 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour, understanding where the market shows that it's actually willing to go lower. And this is where I see the market willing to go lower. But of course, there are still a lot many factors that still remain, like, okay, this gap is already done now. Of course, it's 15 seconds. It's not going to reject all the way till there in 15 seconds. That's obvious. So yeah, we have that gap right there. We have the structure shift. We have the buy side taken. We hold a bearish bias. So in that regard, this gap is also important. Okay, yeah, I did not mark that. I just saw it. So that's a discount gap. This would act in a sense like the first draw for bearishness. Right. So this should act as a first, even this right here. You see that gap? Like these two gaps, this is just for the draw. There's not, again, I'm not expecting to use these gaps in any manner except for the sense of targeting. Okay. A little lighter, it's like too dark for the chart. Right. So these two gaps should be watched for what? For profit booking in case we sell short somewhere there. And if we get that opportunity, right? So that's what I'm looking at still. Just a moment. Right. So I'm still holding that approach. The bias is the movement right here is pretty decent. I look like that should be good. Now we are already in the 950 macro, and that is where that is where in general I would expect an entry short. So I would expect a quick rejection from here. And actually, no, that would be too quick, I think. Well, I don't know. I'm not so good at timing this thing, so that's not what I'm going to attempt also unnecessarily. I see a empty divergence right there, right where, like, see, ES made a higher low, NQ made a lower low, and ES is still on that very gap that we marked, right? So this is where I would expect the market to move higher, but not to move higher, but to sell off, and I still expect that to remain intact. What I also understood is that the market is very variable. When I say variable, even though there are repeatable patterns which repeat, like the 2022 model, or well, particular gap that repeat and are used again and again by the market, right? That is there, but there's a sense of things that would come through backtesting and experience only. As in what? Like either you have, I guess, let's say 15 years of experience in the markets, or you have referred back to years and years of data. So what is that? That is pseudo experience, right? You're tricking your mind into experience which you have not even gained in real time. Well, this is interesting. Mm, okay. Honestly, I was not expecting that breakdown, but let's see. I mean, the market is, I think, heavily bearish, and that could mean that we don't get a very clear opportunity to short, and that would also mean that we tread very carefully, because any entry in this area, why is it unsafe? Because the market has already tested equilibrium of that opening range gap, and if you look at this right there, this complete range, where are we in that range? It's almost on the top, I think, but yeah, see right there, equilibrium. So absolutely, I don't want to touch this. Even if there is a setup, I would be ignoring that. I would wait for more clarity, because we have tested equilibrium. We could just consolidate range bound, or maybe try to go higher and then come back lower. Now my expectation at this moment is that well, yeah, my expectation at this moment is this gap remains untouched right there. That's my expectation. I'm not saying that if it touches it now I'm not selling it, or I'm not looking for more opportunities, but yeah, that's what I would expect, that that gap remain untouched so far until the market retraces and hits that gap and then comes back down, right? So that's what I'm looking for right now. Let's see what the market actually provides. Now, what would I expect in general? I would expect the market to not give any bullish entries. What do I mean by that? Let's say this candle moves higher, which it has not yet, but let's say it does, and it opens up a gap. I would expect the market to not fill it and keep moving higher, right? Something like that. That's what I'm expecting right now. Let's see if it does that or not, and then maybe move higher, consolidate, don't come lower, but then go higher again, and that's where it shows something that it wants to come down. Mm. Okay, let's see if the market can use this order block right there and move higher. Okay. Now that right there was what? The 2022 model being executed, which I'm not saying it's against, but I would have preferred that it would have not been executed. But that's okay. Let's see how the market behaves now. Why am I not taking that idea? Because I'm not bullish. As simple as that. I mean, it's that simple, right? And I'm going to remove that also. I don't think that is important to the conversation right now. Yep, I think that's not. And even if you see it as a 2022 model, the gap is very small, again, secondary. But also there's not been a decent displacement. There's not been energy in our favor. So, well, it may continue, but it's most likely to fail in my opinion. ES is almost moving towards the low of it right there. We've not marked any particular PDA in ES, right? I think the same PDA would do. The same PDA as in the same gap that we are using in NQ at the moment. Now see, look at that in ES 15-minute chart. What is that? That is buy side right there, right? Buy side violated. We had this consolidation. We had this swing low, right? Then the market displaced. See, that's energy. That's what you want to see on a 1-minute chart, like something like a formation like this. And then once the market returns, you sell there and you're looking for that low. So that is the approach. But again, I'm not trading a 15-minute chart. I am looking what can be done on a 1-minute or maybe a 2-minute chart. See, if it touches that gap first, that changes a lot of things. I mean, not just one thing, but a lot of things for me. I don't want to see it touch that gap first, like this green one right here. I'm not expecting it to. I'm expecting it to keep moving higher without touching that gap. And if it does that, now I have to be very careful, because that is where I would say if it holds here and tries to push higher, then I would say that would be a buy and not a sell anymore, at least for the short term. That's just reading price. What can happen, what are you expecting, what can be expected, all of that, like all of those things, right? Hmm. Yeah, ES looks like it wants to move higher now. Let's see if it can continue this. This candle should be much bigger than this one. That's what I'm expecting at this very moment. And this candle should be able to break through that high for NQ. Well, we did not get what exactly we were looking for, but it's still moving higher. So let's see if it can still continue and press on higher or not. Same for NQ. I would expect the next few candles to take off that high, and in a sense of speed. That's what I'm expecting. Again, not delivering what we were looking for. ES is also not doing the same. It's pushed lower again. My narrative is still the same. I'm looking for that gap still to sell off. All right, so one more thing to note is what? That today is Friday, and what has the week mostly done? It's mostly been bullish. It's mostly been bullish, but like actually, honestly, it's been pretty much in a range. Not really been bullish, but yeah, the candle is still green, right, on the weekly. And ES is dropping like anything. That's nice. Okay, so yeah, it's mostly bullish on the week. I don't think we could expect TGIF today. It's highly unlikely because we're not in close proximity to what? We are not in close proximity to the high of the day or high of the week, I mean, in that regard. Okay. Things are shifting fast. ES is moving further lower. Well, hmm, still nothing that I like or nothing that I want to see at this very moment in time. Well, so far it has pretty much been a dull session in respect of, well, not dull, I would not say. I mean, if we had this figured out before the 9:30 open, that was a good sell, but I did not have that, like, I did not have that figured out, obviously. It's not that I had that figured out, I did not. So that's why otherwise I would have sold right there, right before the 9:30 open, expecting a lower run. But that was not clear and we did not do that. Mm, Pre-session trades are very rare, in my opinion, at least for my model and my understanding. Pre-session trades are extremely rare. Like maybe once or twice a month. I think that's also an extreme. You might not get it like that because a lot of factors have to be aligned for a pre-session trade because the volatility would be very fast most of the times, and you would, if you're on the wrong side, let's say you were buying here, like you had bought here, and let's say your stop was right here, right? So if the candle moved lower, you would have lost quite some amount in slippages. That happens a lot. especially when the 9:30 open is extremely volatile, which it was not today, but yeah, you've seen volatile 9:30 sessions, right? Like this one right here. Now, if you were shorting, that was a problem. It would have taken you out in slippages. If you were buying here pre-session, it would have taken you out in slippages, right? So this happens a lot, and that therefore, if you're trading pre-session, that is before 9:30, you need to have a lot more clarity and confidence in what you're looking for. Ever since I've been doing lives, like from, I guess this is the second week, right? Yeah. So from last week, only one trade I have taken, that is pre-session, and no other. Again, the narrative still remains intact. I'm looking for that gap and a setup, and then a short squeeze right there. Mm, yep, I know it's pretty boring today, but that's okay. Fridays can be dull, especially when there is no news and we are in the middle of a range, right? So it can be dull, and that's okay. That doesn't bother me. I'm looking if we can get that or not. In fact, I think I'll just wait for maybe another few candles. If it doesn't break out from here, well, that would be end of the live stream, and I will be waiting once it takes that and hits it, right? Most probably a PM session or a lunch macro trade objective, most likely. Having said that, even though I had a bad week, like I said, like in terms of trades and profitability, I had a pretty decently bad week. But also again, what I realized was this has been pretty much a decent week altogether in terms of lessons and understanding, because I feel I'm back on my feet again before this week ended. So that's pretty cool. The next week should also be something to watch for. Why? Because it's NFP, right? NFP week. So as of next week, checking the economic calendar right now, as of next week, we have news on Monday, PMI. We have news on Tuesday, red folder event, JOLTS job openings. And on Wednesday, again, we have PMI, ISM services PMI. All of these news are at 10 o'clock New York time. Also, the clocks will shift, by the way, right? From 2nd, I believe, 2nd November, if I'm not wrong. From 2nd November, the clocks would shift and we would move 1 hour later, in a sense, right? So if the London session so far was starting at 11:30 a.m. Indian time, it would now start at 12:30 a.m. Indian time. So yeah, that's something for 3 months now, 3 to 4, 5 months, almost till March. So yeah, Wednesday also we have PMI at 10 o'clock. Thursday we have, well, job claims, nothing that is of a red folder interest, but pretty much an important news like altogether. And obviously on Friday, what do we have? What do we have on Friday? It's non-farm payrolls. And also we have on that very day, on Friday, we have two news. We have non-farm payrolls and we also have Michigan consumer sentiment, another red folder event. Wow, next week is going to be, well, packed. I don't I don't prefer weeks that are packed with news, but I also prefer NFP weeks. Like, it's very clean in my opinion, like the way I trade, the way I see things. It's pretty clear overall. So I really like NFP weeks, but most of the NFP weeks don't have that many news in it, except for the NFP in general. But this one has almost one every day. And in fact, on the NFP day also, there's an FP as well as whatever the news was, right? The second news at 10 o'clock, Michigan consumer sentiment, right? Okay. I like that break and I want to see it sustain and push higher. I think we should most likely see a steady move higher, like what? Like something like this. Wow, that's so weird. But yeah, you get the point, right? Like a steady move higher. That's what I'm looking at. If we have a move in a lot of speed, then I have to be very careful for a short, because then if I want to take that out, and even maybe that out, and then come back lower. So that also exists. That's why this is tape reading now. See, this is where tape reading comes into the scene. You're watching each candle, how it's painting, how it's moving, how it's behaving, and then you're expecting if it aligns with what your narrative is, what your approach to the market right now is, what your bias, what your draw is if that aligns with it or not. If it doesn't, we wait. We wait for more clarity. So like I said here, like this one, I told you that even though this looks like a 2022 model, it's most likely to fail. And what did we do here? We failed that, right? We took that stop out. That's why I'm telling you, this model comes at the right place. It's not like you cannot trade it everywhere. And also you cannot trade it if you don't have any clarity as to what the market is doing. The model is of no value if you don't have a clear bias, a clear draw, a clear narrative on the market. I believe we are going to see an extremely bearish day today. I still believe that. I'm still holding myself to it. But will the market show me that or not is something we have to watch. Like, see, how do you understand bias and the difference between bias and draw here also? Like, again, what am I holding? I'm holding a bearish bias, but where is my draw? My draw is right here towards the red gap, right? So that's the draw, but my bias is what? It's bearish. So now you would say that the draw is bullish, so we should trade bullishly, but well, we can, and in a sense, obviously we can. But again, what would that be? That would be a counter trend idea. And counter trend ideas pan out in a much harder way, if they do at all, than trend based ideas, right? So stick to the bias in a sense, but only if everything changes, that's when you change the bias also. The bias can shift as well. Now how would the bias change in general? Like, see, I don't expect that high to be taken, right? But I do think that if it is taken, we will not be seeing downside, we'll be seeing upside from there again. So you see, if that high is taken now, let's say we are in the AM session still, let's say we are beginning it and 9:30 opens and opens here. Okay, I know it's a very, I'm just giving you an analogy, try to understand that. Let's say 9:30 opens here and now it did not hit that gap and it's rushing higher and it takes that high out, right? So I'm not expecting it to come lower now, I'm expecting it to go higher now. So the bias has shifted. Realize that? Yeah, I guess I was pretty clear on that point. This should be a strong candle bullishly. We should be seeing some sort of speed coming into the market at this very point in the next few candles, I suppose. What would be even better if we get our short in the 1050 macro, 1050 as in 1050, right? So if we get our short in the 1050 macro, that would be very good because 1050 macro would do what? It would want to go for the AM stops right here, right? We want to attack that. Okay. I expect the next 5-minute candle. Let's see how this closes. Still 30 seconds remain. I'm expecting a strong bullish candle to close in 25 seconds. So if that closes that way, the next candle should also rush higher. And that's what I'm saying when I'm saying speed. should want to hold that run. Right, so this should be pushing higher in 5 minutes. Okay. Yeah, still holding myself to it. I still think it should be pushing higher, that same thing. And well, something I have also noted, and it pisses me off, I know. It pisses everybody off in general, at least those who are starting. And it used to piss me off and still does, but now I don't get that pissed off, I would say. That you plan something, you see something, but then in a sense, life gets in the way. Like something or the other happens and you have to leave the chart, or you have to go somewhere, or have to do something, and you miss that opportunity, even though you were waiting for it and you were like on point with it, but you're just not there. And that would happen from time to time. You cannot avoid that. Even if you think you can, you won't be able to. And if you think you can, you'll struggle a lot mentally for that, because you'll be just like, I cannot leave the market, I cannot leave the market, I cannot leave the market. And what would that build? Toxic thinking, toxic relationship with the market. And it's not going to help you. For example, we are heading very close to the 1050 macro, and I have to answer nature's call. That's what I think. I'm not sure if I will. I will wait most likely for a 1050 macro to hit, but well, it is what it is, right? Now, at the same time, look at ES. ES is pushing higher into that very gap, and well, this is the order block that I'm looking at. This very, like, this bullish candle right there in between, right? That's the order block I'm looking at. That's actually not an order block, that's a propulsion block, but yeah, that's what I'm looking at. The terminologies, in a sense, they don't really matter if you really understand what you're looking for. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for ES to hit that. And for NQ, we're still holding ourselves to what? To this gap and this gap right here. Right? I'm not expecting it to move much higher than that. Okay. 1 minute remaining to this candle, and that would be a completion of the 15-minute candle as well. See, we have moved into that gap that I mentioned. So that's the 2022 model being executed on the 15-minute time frame. And everything is going as expected so far. And still, what could happen? It may reach there and break out of there, right? That too is there, it can happen. So if it does that, then what do? I do nothing, I leave. I come back on Monday, or maybe the PM session, right? Of course. and this session could extend a bit into 11:30, but not because I'm looking for an entry after 11 or after 11:30, but simply because I do think it would be most likely that we would be getting the entry in the next not the entry, sorry. We would be getting the scenario, the edge played out within that time frame between 10:50 to 11:10, and that would be something I would love to watch because that's where I expect it to be, because that aligns with everything else as well. Like what? Like, see, so many scenarios. It's not like I'm forgetting anything. I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm not saying that in a way that I don't forget anything. I'm simply saying it in the manner that I remember that this low did not hit the gap. I remember that we broke down from 9:30 open, and I see 950 macro. No, 950 macro did not do anything, by the way. But yeah, I see the market moving up, and we are almost into the gap. For ES, we have already hit the gap. So what? I'm expecting that order block at this given moment. I'll just place an alert there for more clarity. And the way it is moving, I honestly don't like it. I told you, right, we were expecting a steady climb and it did go that way, but now it's like showing a sense of speed. And if it's showing a sense of speed, then what would I want to see? I would want to see speed exact opposite of it, right? Like in the bearish way. If we are to entertain this in any kind of a short. I'm going to mark it out actually, that would give us more clarity. Right there. So what is that? Obviously you know, right? That is the 1050 macro. See, I don't want to see it take that high. If it takes it, I lose my interest. I'll have to skip the session and go for the PM session for something if I need to see it, like if I need to see something. And if it doesn't, then we are waiting for what? We are waiting for a setup to show up. Exactly here. We have the narrative is complete. We have hit the gap. We have taken those stops out. That still remains open. And well, I don't think NQ should take that, but it could. I'm not fighting it. It may take that, but I don't expect it to take that, honestly. And let's see when ES hits the order block and when and if it hits the order block. Now, is it mandatory that it hits the gap? It's that order block? No, of course not. Like, it's not mandatory, but that's the extreme end of it. Like in this case, in NQ, the extreme end is this gap. I don't want to see price move above that, right? So that's the extreme end that I would see. For the same thing for ES, the extreme end is the 5-minute order block. I don't expect it to take like these out, right? These equal highs, or maybe even this. Nothing. Don't touch it. That's what I expect in ES. So now what am I waiting for? I'm simply waiting for my model to show up, which is what? Now which model am I expecting here? There's only one model that I'm expecting here, which is 2022 model. There's nothing else to it. And it would be much stronger if 2022 model is presented in ES as well, right? So that adds to it. And well, in 5 seconds we enter the 1050 macro, and then let's see what the market does. And see, if I don't get something in this vicinity, I would leave it be. I'm not looking to push this narrative further, because that would mean we just consolidate and probably move higher, and I would be wrong on the bias in that regard. So yeah, that's why I'm expecting my entry to be within this time frame, like within these 20 minutes. At least the show of the setup, I would say. The show of the setup should be within this time frame, within these 20 minutes right there. Mm. If you look at ES 5-minute chart, it looks good. You see that rejection, that gap, small one, and then that rejection. So that's a good sign, but that doesn't mean it's a sell, right? It just simply means that that's a good sign. So like I said, the narrative is complete here. Now what the only thing we are waiting for is what the setup. I do think it can, like looking at the 2-minute, it may want to tap that gap, and I'm open to it. Again, I'm not fighting it, like I said earlier as well. But yeah, it can tap into that gap, and that is okay for me. I would still hold the narrative, but all right, still waiting on it. I know for sure that this is the time I'm looking for my setup. There's nothing else to it. Again, I'm not looking at 11:30 or maybe 11:45 to provide me a setup. No, it's within this window itself. And like I said, the entry can be done a little later. I'm okay with that, but the setup should be presented in this very macro. Watch this gap right here. Did I say sell? No, I said watch this gap. I'm watching this gap to see if it breaks it right now, or does it push higher and then come back lower. Oops. Right. So if I get speed from here lower, like two candles, three candles in with momentum, with speed, right? And there's a gap present, that would initiate my short in this market for that low, right? And but clearly right now we are not getting that. I'm not saying we are getting it right now, but that's what I'm looking for. The 1 hour is also about to close in 2 minutes now. Mm, you can see that 1 hour order block right there. The market has hit it and is rejecting. If this closes as a wick, okay, if this does that, I would expect this high, like this very candle's high, to not be taken out. That would mean what? Still another 1 minute 30 seconds remain. But if it closes somewhere in this vicinity, like at the moment 10:59 closes, right? 10:59 candle. If this remains, like if there's a wick in the 1 hour, I would expect this high to remain intact after that, but it has not done that yet. We still have 1 minute 11 seconds on the clock. So let's see what it does. Okay, so well, I don't think we got what we were thinking of, and that's even better. I don't think it's a problem. 14 seconds remaining. Well, that is a decent close. Okay, looking at it, I still prefer. That's a preference now. That's not something absolute, but that's a preference that I would want to see that high, that 1 hour high, as in this particular high right here, to remain intact. This high right here. So I'm expecting that to remain intact overall, but again, it's a preference. It's not something absolute, not the way it has closed. It moved higher, right? If it would have been lower, I would have expected it to remain absolutely intact, but not for now. It can wick into it, maybe even break that and then go lower. But it all depends on this gap and the speed that comes in, if at all, in within the next 10 minutes. And I did come live earlier, but I had some issues with my mic, and that reminds me that I should be deleting that live. Okay, so that is done. And now looking at, yeah, now looking at that high and looking at ES, if ES can hit the order block, that would be even better, and NQ takes the high out, right? That would be beautiful. And then we get a setup presented. I apologize for my dog in the background. Okay. The picture still remains the same. The only thing that is missing is speed. If we get speed moving downwards, I would be entertaining the whole thing. If we don't, well, I am not touching it. Now, if you look at ES is currently breaking down, but yeah, we need to see some speed and shift, and that gap right there should be broken through. Mark that out for clarity. Okay. Why am I watching ES right now? Because if ES presents me with something that I want to see in NQ, now I would align that with NQ and see if I can get what I'm looking for. That's the whole game. And that's a clear no-no. All right, we just have 5 minutes remaining and I would be closing this session if we don't really get what we need to see. I think this candle would be volatile. I will not say the direction because honestly I don't know the direction right now of this very candle. But it should have some decent energy in it is what I'm thinking right now. Okay. Honestly, it's been a dull day, and that's okay. Another 3 minutes and 50 seconds, 45 seconds. This candle looks like it should be ripping lower. Let's see if it does that. Okay. All right. I guess in a sense this candle has a lot of responsibility, and it's not looking very responsible. I mean, in sense of a short, of course. Well, I think that would be it for me. I don't want to not wait for the last minute. I would just wait for that one more minute and that one more candle, and then we'll end this session, and that would be for this Friday AM for me. Honestly, I think I would want to go for that high first, the way it's behaving. Well, all right. So that's it for today, and we'll meet again on Monday. And if I do something in the PM session, I would definitely share that. So that was it. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend. Stay away from the markets. Only practice. See you.